stream has started. Now that it's started, I can give the link. Does anybody want the link so they can share it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Are you emailing the link to us?
I will get the link.
I think he's putting in the Zoom chat.
Oh, okay.
I was going to send it to people through Facebook Messenger.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you have them
Yes,
on Facebook Messenger?
Praise
So then
the
I can
Lord.
go to my Facebook Messenger and
Yeah, and you'll see it. Let's see here.
But we're not
Good.
Facebook friends, so can you send me something?
Sure, I will. Okay. Is your Facebook name the same as your name on?
Faustenia L. Morrow. There's two of us.
Okay. All right.
Faustenia as well. But I'm the L.
Okay.
Faustenia, were you able to listen while I was talking about the Nash House and how we got to know one another?
I didn't catch most of it because my computer went out. But
I just
hopefully,
wanted to let you know I kind of somewhat filled in as best as I could.
What is the Nash House? I'm sorry.
you want me to take that one?
Yes.
So the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, which is on Michigan Avenue, and it includes anchors, the WFO radio station, the Michigan Street Baptist Church, the Colored Musicians Club, and the Nash House, which is named after Reverend Nash, who was a pastor, very influential, and I'm sure that Reverend probably talked about his connection to basically stewarding many pastors or many people who were interested in theology and going further from Buffalo into Virginia. And so the Nash family is very, very prominent in Buffalo in our history and a part of the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor. So they held a event that I attended at Durham Memorial in the actual gym that we're going to be having our gathering for MLK Day, which is how I knew to even ask Pastor Bill if we could use the space because it's a larger space because we've grown so much.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I've been to the Michigan Street Avenue corridor.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've seen the WUFO radio station next to the Baptist church. So.
And then behind the Baptist church is the street is called Nash Street actually, and there's a house, and that's the Nash House. So Nash House utilized the Durham Memorial AME Zion Church's gym, and that's where I met the very knowledgeable and illustrious Pastor Bell.
Well, let me get my wallet out. I'm not sure how much you want for that, but thank you.
Yes, and he was so kind to let us utilize.
And Virginia Union, the school, is significant to note because of the education that Reverend Nash got. Now, and that was primarily a Baptist school of theology. But my own Bishop Dennis V. Proctor, actually was a graduate of Virginia Union. And you had some great theologians and preachers that have come out of that institution throughout the ages. But the biggest significance was the role that he played in this part of the country, in Buffalo, New York, stabilizing the community that he served.
Is your bishop connected to Sam Proctor in the Proctor Institution?
Yes. He was a fellow of the Samuel L. Proctor. In fact, he's noted as one of the top 10 preachers in this country.
Go to that training. I have to talk to you about that. I learned something new every time I talk to
Samuel Proctor. Yeah, Dr. Samuel Proctor was a noted theologian and preacher in the Black church tradition. And that speaks volumes, because when we talk about Black church tradition, it was a buttress to what Western and white theology had left out of the gospel. And we wanted to make sure that it was depicted holistically.
Right. Wonderful.
And not as European domination.
Right. Now, one thing we can do, Richard, what I was planning to do was, when this was over, I was going to then share from the Western New York Peace Center onto my page.
That sounds
so
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I can share it after.
Yeah.
Because it's live streamed on the Western New York page, right?
It is, yeah. But I have the link, and I'm going to share it with you guys right now through email.
Okay. Because I actually was going to use my phone to mention things, but...
Okay, so I should be...
Now, this is going to air for half an hour?
No, it's going to air... The link is not... So it's going to air for under, like, probably 55 minutes.
Praise the Lord.
Yes. Because we want to make sure that we leave time for the next session. So we'll stop at... You'll see the timer. You'll see the timer come up when it starts. And then at 55, we'll be closing up.
Thank you.
Yes. And I just sent you guys the link. It's not clickable, so you're going to have to copy-paste.
So then walk me through how we put this on our Facebook page. Do we just cut and paste it like it was a copy? I haven't done it this way. I've normally been watching something live and then clicked on it and shared it to my page.
Let me see. I think you might have to share it.
I think you do, and that means that I have to share it from the Western New York Peace Center. Let's try it Let's try it the way I know first.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been on. I
love your laugh.
Okay, so right now it's not live yet, right? Because we would be talking.
Okay, I just put it on the Western New York Peace Center page.
Okay. Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay,
I just put it on the Western New York Peace Center page.
Yeah, I can hear Richard speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure. Oh, I see it. Yeah. Okay.
I just put it on the Western New York Peace Center.
Hello. You gotta love technology, right? It's a wonderful thing. Okay.
I can hear Richard speak.
It's on my page now.
Okay.
Hey, wonderful.
Oh, we start.
Okay, Samaria, do you see where the timer is, where the letter 5 is?
Yes.
Okay, that's going to be where the timer is.
Okay.
Shall we start the show?
We shall.
When you see on the air, you are on the air, okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
Welcome to Talking Peace at Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio, home of the future, and home of Richard Wicca, our producer. Broadcasting on WBNY, Buffalo's alternative radio show. Thank you to our friends at Buff State. We start every episode off with gratitude and recognition that we are on stolen Haudenosaunee land. Here, right here in the studio, we're on Seneca, and we just want to recognize that we are on unceded land. We also just give thanks to God, our creator and sustainer of life. We're thankful for acts of service, for love, for community, for air, the trees. And we're also very thankful for our 2 guests today. I will introduce you guys to Miss Faustenia. She is the executive director of Monarch Infinite Possibilities. She is a climate activist, very passionate about that, and she also started the MLK Day service, and coordinated and organized the Buffalo MLK Day of Service events and service projects, which she will probably talk more about. And we also have joined with us Reverend Bell. He is the pastor at Durham Memorial AME Zion Church, and he also is very active in the community. And yeah, so I'm very excited for you guys to talk about MLK Day of Service and what's happening in Buffalo. So we usually start off with values that pertaining to the topic of MLK and remembering his life. So what are some values that you guys have or you hold pertaining to service in MLK Day? And we can start with Pastor Bell.
One of the critical points of Dr. King was in a book that he wrote in 1967, Strength to Love. He points out that he chooses love. In fact, you could see it on the helmets of the Buffalo Bills often. And to understand that choosing love as compared to the choice of hatred and violence. I think of 514, for example, and what happened to Buffalo that really shocked Buffalo. But if you understand that Buffalo, just by virtue of its colonial experiences, when we raised up Millard Fillmore to be president of the United States, Buffalo, and he went on and signed the Fugitive Slave Law Act of 1850. Buffalo was really an outpost for the antebellum movement, and just like the South. And you've seen the movie. Oh God, what's
Selma?
the name of it? No, it's one. It's one that really depicts and paints the antebellum South after the Civil War and Gone with the Wind. Gone
with the Wind. Okay.
And so the tragedy of 514 is a long-standing history of the subjugation of a people and peoples for the benefit of an elite population. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, when we talk about strength to love or I choose love, that is a radical that is a radical position that is buttressed up against your contemporary community. And what Dr. King was doing at that particular point was recognizing that we have more power if we came together. There's 140 million people across this country that are low-income wage workers and at or under the poverty rate. When you look at many of the old Confederate states and see 60, 65, 70, 75% of their population as low-income workers, we have a problem with that, particularly when 53% of every dollar earned is going to the military. And that money is primarily used to launder money into the pockets of the 1%. The fear-mongering is that it protects us from all the foreign invaders. What it really does is sells bombs and missiles and guns and all of that stuff. And that filters all throughout. So the mere fact that we pause to strengthen our resolve on the 15th every year serves as a constant reminder of not just the duty we have in terms of helping to realize the greatness within us as a community, but to also remind the community around us that we're not going to stop until everyone is free. And so that includes the black and the white and the red and the yellow, the gay, the trans, that includes those who are disabled, that includes the least of these amongst us, until we all get there. When justice rolls down like a mighty river, we hear from the book of Amos. That is the march of the drum major, and that's what Dr. King was. And so even in Buffalo, we still have problems with housing, with education, with income inequality, all manners of disparities where the center is really based on a lack of justice.
Yeah. So the values that I'm hearing that you're talking about is, one, justice, and two, love. And justice is love displayed in public. I can't remember who said that, but it was a famous quote. And also justice for the marginalized. And you mentioned the fear-mongering in the military and how we're spending so many resources on our military budget instead of putting it into our communities. And those are just amazing values that to bring to this conversation as we go forward. And Ms. Faustenia, what are some of the values that you think of relating to MLK Day?
Well, thank you for asking and for having us. And what I would tell you, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And so when I think about Dr. King and what he resembled and the values that he shared, he was always about bringing us together, no matter who you are, no matter your social economic background, no matter whether you were old or young. And for me, that is one of the cornerstones of how I move and breathe and work. I look at ways to bring us together and also to never leave anyone behind.
That's amazing. I love that proverb, that African proverb. If you want to go far, or if you want to go, what is it again? If you want to go fast,
want to go fast,
go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's just the emphasis on. That's another big value is community, and how we can't do. I mean, we're social beings by nature. We need to be in fellowship. So and what Dr. King did is he brought people together, and that's what created those big movements. That nothing could have been accomplished if people weren't on the same accord. So those are amazing values. Some values that I think I want to bring to the table today is justice, as Pastor Bell mentioned. Being able to stand up for the marginalized, loving other people, and despite what they look like, human dignity, making sure that people have access to health care, food, education, equal opportunity. Equity is another value that I think that is important. It's not about making things equal, but it's about the outcome of having people have that same opportunity as their counterpart. So these are amazing values, and I'm excited to bring them to the conversation and talking about MLK and his life. So for you guys, what is the most memorable thing or the most inspirational thing about MLK and how he went about his movement? Was it more for you like the nonviolence, or what is the most memorable thing about MLK and his life?
So I'll start by saying the way that Dr. King was able to look to the mountaintop, if you will, and not get lost in the molehill, because oftentimes it'll be the little things that will halt progress. People will get caught up in, how someone looks or what they said or didn't said or how they said it. And it seems like with everything that Dr. King did, he looked to the mountaintop. He looked beyond what we could see. And to me, that takes great strength. Because if you think about now in the madness of what's happening in the world, the madness that's happening, we could get caught up in a lot of things and miss the point.
Yeah.
And so for him to recognize that despite what it looks like, you know, people often talk about his speech about I have a dream, right? The interesting thing is that he had a dream, but he was woke at the same time. And so he walked and he moved and he gathered people together, recognizing that, you know, they may come up against us, but we're going to keep moving. Mm-hmm. They may talk about us, but we're going to keep moving. And when I say keep me moving, I'm thinking about one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman, for example. That's what she had to say as they were taking the journey. It doesn't matter what you see. You might hear those dogs and think they're close, but we have got to keep moving to get to the promised land. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that that was something that I know I hang my hat on when things get tough, when people don't believe in what you're trying to do. And if you're a visionary, because I'm a visionary, if you're a visionary, you got to lead people and you got to pull people with you. And sometimes they won't see it. So that moves me every time I think about Dr. King.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned, because you're kind of connecting it to his speech at the mountaintop, and oftentimes we see Dr. King kind of like makes this metaphor or simile with the people, the Israelites leaving Egypt, and him being like the Moses. And maybe, Pastor Bell, you could elaborate on this for us, given your title.
To respond to your question, I think that one of the compelling traits of Dr. King is that Dr. King was prophetic in his speaking. And what that just simply means is, as you talked about the speech that he gave the night before he was killed at the Lorraine Motel, and he gave that speech on the mountaintop, and that speech was a visionary speech. It was just not just a visionary speech, but it was cast in the same echoing of an Isaiah who reminded us of that there'll be one to come, and that one to come will be called Mighty God and Counselor, Prince of Peace. And somehow for every prophet, they have eyes that allows us to see what we can't normally see without the agency of some help. Mm-hmm. And most of that is the fact that God is so much God that even in the midst of our strife, God has not forgotten us. And to be able to cast that net out and say, ain't no stopping us. You might, as he said in his speech, he said, I might not get there when you get there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I've seen it for myself. I've seen the problem. Mine eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. And so what we have is the essence of inspiration. And what makes great preachers is that for the time that they live in, it is a means and a catalyst for mobility. And his mobility was part of a movement that America, and a shift that America was going through, because they believed in something they could not see. And so the longer he lived, the more ground would have been gained on behalf of the poor and the least of these. And so that bullet that took him out, it seemed like it slowed down a movement. It slowed down things, especially as it related to the war industry. But at the same time, if you understood the God that was behind it, that just echoes a far greater freedom than we have ever realized. And it's still on its way. So I'm just glad that we have a moment to pause and to recognize the things we don't see, but we are very much a part of a world that can't be undressed with your eyes, only by faith. And so the mere fact that justice was always at the center of a prophetic message just simply suggested that for those who discounted what they were doing. And unfortunately, this country was notorious. You started out with a prayer from the natives. And we remember what had happened to the natives. And then we also know what happened to Africans that came here from Africa, and then other races that have come here. This has not been the great melting pot. And when we take a look at the immigration issue, there's no way in the world that I could support a January 6th and not think of that as a treasonous act. Now, you have to also know that there have been numerous efforts throughout this country and the life of this country to do those kinds of things just because they wanted to replace the power that they wanted to get out. And so we look at a country that has not arrived. And how can it arrive? When a slave state had a set of laws and a free state had a set of laws, they had two set of laws. So Jim Crow is just part and parcel of the fact that we have never decided on who we really wanted to be, except for the fact that very powerful people and very rich people that were tied to the European way of doing things were still going to dominate this country. And domination was what controlled this country without the ethics that went further than the laws that were being put on the books. If New York State cannot include us in the first Constitutional Convention, and that from 1700s to 1744, they could write us off, and if we moved our finger the wrong way, they could shoot us and not be held accountable. This was the same slave state that the Romans had produced, that there was no accountability from certain persons in this country. And until we recognize that this land is our land too, and you've got to make room for it. That's what the Poor People's Campaign that Dr. King started was simply about. By bringing more poor people into the river. Langston Hughes says, I've seen rivers wide. And so that river that's so wide is the suffering that's going on all throughout America, particularly with poor people that don't have access to health, don't have access to education, don't have this, don't have that. And it's not about the old Puritan work ethic, because they were the ones that were willing to enslave us and traumatize us and to set up a hierarchical system. So we have several challenges, but I was glad today that there is still hope, and that light of hope keeps us moving.
And one thing I want to add, since Pastor mentioned the January 6th insurrection, the MLK Day of Service that we are celebrating was birthed from that situation. And if I may, I was supposed to travel to DC for the inauguration that year, because we're going into our 4th year of this MLK Day of Service. And typically what happens around the inauguration is they have an MLK Day of Service that you can participate in. So I've always participated in every time I've gone. But when I called to say, okay, I'm just trying to get my tickets together for the inauguration, what I'm going to and all of that, they said, the events have been canceled, many of the events, and it's not going to be an inauguration like it usually would be. And I'm like, wait a minute, I got tickets. I'm going to this or that. But because of the insurrection, basically the weekend that I was about to leave, that Friday, things were canceled and I had to cancel my trip. So that meant I would be home in Buffalo for the first time for an inauguration. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be home, I got to do something on MLK Day for community service. So I went to look to see what we had going on in the city of Buffalo, and there was nothing that was planned. So I went on Facebook and said, if I can get 10 people who will volunteer, we'll do a cleanup on Michigan Avenue, which is historic in our Buffalo community, and we'll do a cleanup and let's see what happens. Before the day had closed, over 10 people had signed up. And that Monday on MLK Day, 20 people showed up to do a cleanup outdoors. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, just like with Dr. King and with every movement, we know how to take a situation and turn it into, take a trial and turn it into something beautiful.
Right.
Yeah, triumph.
Right.
And I have to thank you for the insight and the enthusiasm that you bring to the table, because what I have noticed over my years of experience is that people may seem like they're on the other side of the issue, but oftentimes they just don't know how to get into stuff that they have value over. And no, nobody likes talking about Buffalo as the armpit of the country, especially if you're associated with Buffalo in any way. The mere fact that the Buffalo East Side remains in shambles is beyond me. I come back after 7 years, and it's in shambles. Dr. Lewis Henry Taylor, the noted historian of Buffalo at University of Buffalo, reminds us always of how important it is to bring people into hope. And so just because of his scholarly work that he does and his efforts in the community, I'm much appreciative of what he brings to the table. And so at the end of the day, all I want to say to you is thank you for the courage and the strength that you bring and the determination to bring not just some people, but to bring us all into a pool where we can be the difference and not just talk about the difference.
Right. It's different. You have to talk. You have to actually walk the walk, not just give lip service.
Yeah.
And Pastor Bell, you mentioned a good point about Dr. Taylor at the UB professor, because he spoke a lot about the Buffalo segregation and how it exists till this day and the history of it and the redlining and how on the east side of Main Street there is a higher concentration of blacks living in poverty and how segregation is interconnected with poverty in Buffalo, and also how the Kensington Expressway is part of that whole picture of the segregation that exists till this day. And it's sad. It's sad because these are the things that Dr. King was fighting for, and we still have yet to achieve it. Even though redlining is illegal, why is it still that Buffalo is the 6th segregated city in the U.S.? So I want to bring that to the conversation right now. Can we discuss this? Is there a reason? Because Dr. King said that segregation is a disease. So what is the cure to this disease? Why is it still existing today?
I'm glad you asked the question. He not only said it was a disease, but John Lewis came up with a formula. And in that formula, he said we need to get rid of the dividing line between the cities and the suburbs. The very thing that separates you is the dividing line. And once regionalization happens, then you can actually do more with regionalization as a strategy and a tactic. So I'm bridging what Dr. King had said to the point of what John Lewis has said, and trying to make it relevant. So when we take a look at what happened with Route 33 and why that was critically important, that in the 60s when we had urban sprawling made it possible so that people could move out of the cities into the suburbs. And it created a pathway for easy access to and fro, and for people who then lived in the suburbs to then work and take the benefits of war back out to the suburbs in order to build it up. Never mind the fact that when billions of dollars came into the city of Rochester for economic development in downtown or in the Buffalo, in the east side of the community, that was more or less money laundering to be taken back out because we didn't get the jobs, we didn't work the plan, and the crumbs that we did get was never enough to undo generations or years of trauma that the Buffalo East Side had endured with. And so as long as that was denied, we continued to make what we call these donut hole communities. And a donut hole community is just where you say, we're going to leave the Black people in the hole and there are no resources for them. And we're going to take all the resources and put it on the outside. That's what a donut hole community is. So segregation is really the mark of domination, carving out who gets in and who stays out. But if we all have value, then we'll stop allowing big money to carve up our highways just to make way for us to go and do shopping out there and have nothing but strip. We have no grocery stores in the downtown. I mean, in on the east side, except that one Tops. So we have food deserts. We've got all kinds of deserts. And so we want to be able, if we're going to help ourselves, we've got to be given the tools of freedom. And that's kind of what LBJ said at a commencement service in 1965 to Howard University graduates. How dare we give slaves freedom, but we don't give them the resources of freedom.
Well, that's one of the reasons I think for me working in the environment and having an environmental focus is so important, because to me, it is the great equalizer, because we all need to breathe clean air. It doesn't matter where you live. We all need to drink clean water, right? And focusing on what I call Mother Earth, which I'm convinced that Mother Earth was a Black woman, because, you know, we take a lot. And when we reach a certain point, we're like, okay, that's it. The gloves are off. And if you notice, Mother Earth.
Did you say that the richest soil was Black?
Come on now.
If you go to Kenya, you would see that the soil is actually red. Yeah, I didn't know that until going, but it's interesting. Sorry, you can continue.
Yeah. No, but I was gonna say, you know, as a Black woman, we take a lot. We carry everybody on our shoulders, and I think that Mother Earth has said to us, "Listen, I'm tired, and we need to do something different. And if you don't do something, I can show you better than I can tell you." Now, we all know with a Black mama, we've heard that before. And so that's why I think that, you know, the theme this year for our MLK Day is clean and green. And we're moving to focusing on the environment, teaching people about sustainability, looking at ways to reduce waste, and looking at ways to do things in a more environmentally friendly way so that we can, you know, have something left for generations to come. If we don't do something different, if we don't do something in the now that's different, we won't even have a planet to live on. So, you know, I think that is important, and why shifting to understand more about the environment and how we meaning people of color, people who look like us, can get more involved, faith communities. And that's the work that I do at the Monarch of Infinite Possibilities.
Yeah,
I know one of the things that we're trying to do is to bring solar energy into not just the church, but solar energy into communities in the east side of Buffalo that can help to leverage the cost and to get us to participate in technology in a healthy way. In Japan, they've done this, and in other areas of the world, and over in the States, they want to. They've tried to make sure that this is done through individuals. My argument was poor people don't have the resources to participate.
Exactly.
So we had to find ways to bring technology to the masses in a cost-effective way, because it's so critical that we buy into sustainability. The whole question of sustainability is about air, and it's about water, and it's about de-stressing the toxicity around us and the food that we consume. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot for us to learn going forward, and a lot for us to participate. We ought to be developing work crew that can install solar panels, because whether we like it or not, that's going to be a technology that we're going to use going into the future, deep into the future. And so where are our artisans? Where are our people that are participating in these new developing technologies that can help their communities? So there's a lot of different levels that we can find to help in the question that is being raised.
And Dr. King didn't really speak about climate justice. I feel like it wasn't a topic back then, but it's more so on this generation. We really have to get down to acting upon what's happening with our planet. And that goes back to the militarization and not having enough resources, and people being afraid that we might not have enough resources in the future, and that this generation has to work towards being more sustainable so that the next generations have a planet to live on. And the thing is with MLK is we have to really understand that people need human dignity, and if we can't respect people's lives, that when it comes to having places to play or green space, then we're not respecting human dignity at all. And that was part of MLK's fight as well, is that everyone should have their basic rights respected. So how do you guys feel about what Buffalo is doing for MLK Day this year? Because I know that, Ms. Faustenia, you have a lot planned. I don't know, Reverend Bell, do you have anything planned at your church for MLK Day, Day of Service?
We do have the Day of Service, which I'm glad. I normally like to have 3 days of events that lead up to it, and then the MLK Day. We paused this year just because of the fact that there's going to be work done and so much going on with Day of Caring, and we want to be a blessing to those that are participating and watching them grow and get them enthused about what they're doing. And that becomes very fundamentally important. So we pause for a minute just to be a part of something that's bigger than any one of us. So I look forward to that and being a community participant.
Okay. I want you, Ms. Faustenia, can you talk more about like what the service projects are? I know there's going to be there's going to be work done at Durham Memorial. So, correct. So what exactly, are you guys painting the church, or is it something just cleaning up?
So we have over 30 different projects that are happening on MLK Day. And what we typically do is bring everybody together in one space and have a time to build community for people who don't necessarily know each other to at least connect. And then they go out into the east side, different projects, and do their project. Now, Durham, last year, we had the great fortune to paint their bathrooms in the church. And when we set it up initially, and we had the 9 sites, we had a certain number of people that were going to go to different sites. Well, many people were so excited that Durham ended up with like 28 people there. So not only did we get to paint 1 bathroom, we got to paint 2. And then they got to do some cleaning projects because what I found with our MLK Day volunteers, which, by the way, they come from all over Western New York, they love to do anything that is requested that's going to help and make an impact. So I love it because one of our partners this year is the NAACP, the Buffalo branch, and Reverend Blue has a phrase that he likes to use. He says, "Many hands make light work." And so at Durham Memorial last year, at Durham Memorial AME Zion, I got to add that part, we had many hands doing multiple things, and they were able to achieve a lot. And so this year, Pastor Bell has another great project. They're going to go upstairs and do some painting there.
Nice.
And what's amazing, like my goal for MLK Day of Service was that it would be projects on the east side that impact churches, so houses of worship, and also nonprofit organizations that really need, helping hands that can do something within an hour to 2 hours. And so we casted the net wide, hoping that we would get, at least 25 projects. And like I said, we are up to 30 projects. We have over 250 people who have signed up to come out, and they're going to do anything from, right, let's give it up for the people. They are going to do anything from painting. They're going to do cleaning. Like last year we had 150 people who went to 9 sites, and they donated over 280 hours of their time.
Wow.
And one other church, so Durham Memorial is down Eagle Street in Michigan. At the other end of Michigan is the Freedom Wall. And the church that sits there is also a historic church, Bethel AME Zion. So they had requested that we paint a youth lounge, but people were so excited.
AME.
Bethel AME. Thank you for the correction. Thank you. They had requested the youth lounge be painted, but we ended up sending 25 hands over there. So they were so excited that they painted the entire youth wing.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible. And we tell the volunteers they're donating at least 1 to 2 hours of their time. Well, they were so enthusiastic, they didn't want to stop. So some of them painted for up to 3.5 hours because they wanted to be there. And then they asked, when I stopped by to visit each site, they asked, "Can we come back next year? Do you think they'll have something else for us to do?" People really, our volunteers really enjoy, because it's not like just doing a grunt work project, right? It's not just, we're going to do whatever. And the spirit, people have embraced the spirit of Dr. King and that love that we talked about. They are exuding the love. So they want to do whatever is needed. And that's why my emphasis has been on the church in particular, and houses of worship, and then on nonprofits. Now, one of the exciting additions in those 30 projects is we're going to have the African American Cultural Center is one of the sites. And they are going to do different projects there so that the people who come to volunteer there will have a chance to mix and mingle with the staff and the people that are there and young people. And it's really interesting, as I looked at the sign up of the over 250 people, we have, one of my models is to utilize groups. So I went, to various corporate groups, various affinity groups, the African American group at Thermo Fisher, for example, at Independent Health, although Independent Health they sent the sign up far and wide, and they have one of the largest groups of people come in to volunteer at all the different sites. Well, we have groups like Explore Buffalo that are sending like 12 people to go do a project. We got groups coming from Orchard Park Presbyterian Church.
Service collaborative.
Very collaborative. We've got the Eastern Stars coming we've got the D9, Sigma Gamma Rho, the Zetas, and I'm wearing red, so I think you're clear that I'm a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
My.
The best sorority ever.
I want to say, even Mark Poloncarz came to Durham last year.
Wow.
And when you think of the county executive coming and getting his hands dirty, that's a testament to the city of good neighbors as it plays out, and it kind of washes a lot of stuff that becomes problematic. It shows another side of Buffalo that's critically important to talk about. So the thing about Durham that's important for us to remember is it's not just a church, but we have a community center. That's where they did all the work. In that community center, it was long-standing that because of our soup kitchen, we fed a lot of homeless, and our daycare was substantial. We've got probably one of the largest daycares in that downtown Buffalo area, and for us to have that, it's a treasure. So we've gotten that up, and we're just about ready to launch. We did a dry run of our soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, so we're just about ready to reopen our soup kitchen on a full-time basis. And our work that we do with pregnant mothers has been substantially important. So much so that during the blizzard last year, one of the things that was significant and kind of mystical was that we helped to deliver a baby
during the blizzard,
just by cell phone, because of our what we call doulas, and that's Greek for slave. These are primarily women, and they carry these traditions because one of the things that you need to know, and I think the general public needs to be reminded of, is that we suffer high mortality rates when we go into hospitals to have babies.
I did not know that.
The disparities are awful, okay? And whether you want to call it poverty or what, all I know is that there's a difference between the birth rates of whites and the low birth rates of blacks. But our doulas they cut through all of that, and they make sure that they deliver, and they give good connections for mothers to have not just good prenatal care, but very good care afterwards, and they become community. So much of the work that we go through and much of the work that we do it goes under the wire. But these are some significant things that you help us to do.
I wonder if you're familiar with Our Mommy Village. She's a great doula. So I don't know if you. Yeah, she's very involved in the community. But going back to the service projects, I'm also going to be volunteering on MLK Day of Service. I'm going to be volunteering at Every Bottom Covered. And I believe what are we going to be doing? We're going to be making packaging diapers, right?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning it, because I was going to say Every Bottom Covered is one of our nonprofits that they requested 25 volunteers, and that filled up so quickly because they have a warehouse and they need help kind of getting everything together and sorting through. And so imagine, this is the beauty of this community service day, is that maybe there's a project that the church or the nonprofit needed that they just didn't have time to do. And here you have 25 people coming in to help you, organize things and whatsoever. And interestingly enough, there's another project, Upward Design, where they help women who, need, whether it's furniture or what have you. They do kind of like makeovers, and a lot of the people that they help have been displaced in some way. And they needed volunteers. Now, they are very organized because I've been watching them over the years. And yet we will be able to send volunteers there to help get things ready. And so the projects range one of the things I'm very excited about is I wanted it to be clean and green. And last year, when we cleaned at certain places, one of the environmentalists that came to help whispered to me, she said, "This is really good." She said, "But I need to tell you something." She said, "I noticed that the cleaning products that were used were the most toxic ever." Now, I grew up in a household that if the house didn't smell like bleach and pine sol, it wasn't clean, honey. As a matter of fact, we're like, "Did they do any cleaning here?"
I don't smell anything. Yeah.
And pine sol. And it's interesting because the products that we use are so full of chemicals and are so toxic that in many ways they're related to some of the challenges with our health and respiratory issues. So when that note, because I made an assumption that, I never should have done, that people would use, green and clean products. So to ensure of that, I went and had a sponsor to donate clean and green products.
Walmart,
so every
right?
site, yes, Walmart stepped up and they have donated seventh generation products so that every site that has a cleaning site will get products that were donated so that people can use clean and green products. And that's what I hope that as we continue into the future, like next year, I'm hoping to focus more on clean energy and the energy transition that's happening so that we can look at how can we prepare even in that sector. Because we've got to take, even if they're baby steps, we got to take baby steps in order to get where we're going. We got to go somewhere. So I'm excited about this shift to sustainability, this shift to thinking different. Even people will notice when they come, we're not going to hand out programs and paper because that's the way that we're killing trees, right? We're going to look at, in every way, how can we model doing things in a more sustainable and environmentally friendly way. And to me, that's what it's really all about. I was kind of so overjoyed in our meeting, because we have a committee of over 15 people who are all volunteers who stepped up. Either they participated in the past or they heard about it and wanted to get involved. And as we were talking, I remember hearing someone in the meeting say, "Oh, no, wait a minute. We got to figure out a more sustainable way to do that." And that just made me smile and it made my heart proud because I don't need awards. The award to me is when I know that people will think twice about, how they can reduce waste and, help Mother Earth, help our sister Earth.
One of the things I would like to have seen, that I would like to have seen or would like to see, just stemming from that, those who know better can do better, and that you would find a way to extend that by having little workshops that you can go around these various areas and say, "I'm going to give you the 21st century version of why you need to stop using this and start using that."
That's a great idea.
I believe
start workshops.
What's missing is the education, and those that would have the patience with
people don't
us
know,
who are old school with the bleach and whatever, and old dogs can learn new tricks.
Oh, amen to that.
Regardless of what they say.
No, Pastor Bell, I'm going to have to take you with me because I'm going to tell you
together.
Yeah, you're going to have to go with me. But you're right in my wheelhouse because that's what the Monarch is all about, is raising the level of awareness and then providing opportunities to educate. So that's the very thing that we
I'm just the preacher. The truth shall set free. So, if that means that we cut down in our respiratory ailments, our asthma, our, whatever the issue might be, then let's make the next 25 to 50 years better for those communities we serve. And let's have a way where we can create data. To create data that says what we do count and matter.
Right. And I didn't think we were going to get so deep into sustainability efforts but this is amazing because I'm actually doing a winter clothing drive because I'm in AmeriCorps Vista, and I'm gonna be collecting gently used or new boots, hats, scarves, any cold weather attire that you have, and I'm gonna be collecting them from starting tomorrow through February 5th, and we're gonna be distributing it to the homeless and new Americans like refugees and immigrants. So the drop-off sites will be the Frank Merriweather Library on Jefferson, and then City Hall Library, or the City Hall lobby, and also Delavan Greater Community Center.
City Hall has a lot of lobbies. Now, you have to be more specific.
More specific? It's as soon as you enter through those doors,
the mayor
past
would
the
not
security.
like that, okay?
It's the ground level. So,
okay.
Yeah, as soon as you pass by security, you'll see the Buffalo City Mission donation bin.
My mother had just passed in April, and so I have lots of that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. Well,
to remove.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but she will be a blessing to many other people with her donations that you can provide. So I'm good.
So expect to have a bunch of, and if you need more stuff, say it now.
Well, Buffalo City Mission specifically needs boots and hats, so I know that's something that you can provide if you have any of those. And there's also a lot of other events happening surrounding MLK Day. They're not specifically on MLK Day, but I know that January 12th there's something happening there's a celebration at the Frank Merriweather Library, and it starts at, I believe it starts at 6 p.m. if I'm not wrong. Yes. So if anybody's interested, they can attend that. And then there's another celebration. It's a live performance happening at Canisius Montante Cultural Center, January 21st. And they'll be doing a live performance. I think Joyce Carolyn will be performing. There will be the African American Cultural Center will be doing the drums, and that starts at 2:30, January 21st. So there's a lot happening surrounding MLK Day in Buffalo.
Not to mention, there's a historic MLK Day that happens on the Sunday, on the 14th.
Okay.
At Kleinhands. That has been happening since I was a little girl. And Sister Bessie Patterson and Brother Clifford Bell and their whole team over the years have coordinated that. And it brings out all the churches and choirs, and even had last year the handbell, or the year before, the handbell choir.
Handbells, I love
and several of the churches, because there's over 15 churches that are participating in our MLK Day of Service on that Monday. Several of the churches that happen to be participating in ours are also a part of the program. And that program has existed, like I said, since I was a little girl, which is always the highlight on that Sunday. So it's going to be on the 14th.
The January 14th at Kleinhand. Okay.
Kleinhand.
So you hear that, everybody? January 14th. That's where we gotta be. So we are running. We're actually running out of time. I'm so grateful that you two could come on and speak with us today about Buffalo community and what we're doing for MLK Day and our efforts to improve and make our Buffalo the beloved community that Dr. King dreamed about. So. This has been Talking Peace, and together we have been talking peace in truth and in love.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.